I'd like to introduce Pablo Patino. Pablo is a DevOps consultant who has worked in the cloud space for over 8 years. His diverse cloud experience varies from working with cloud hardware to developing cloud-native applications along with their CI/CD pipeline. But above all of that, he is a self-proclaimed professional dog owner. Pablo, the floor is yours.
Okay, and this will be an introduction into Helm. You can go ahead and get started. Okay, so just some prerequisite knowledge, just to cover before we jump right in. Yeah, what are containers and what is Kubernetes? So containers are a method of packaging applications, and it allows you to run your application in multiple environments, multiple machines, architectures. And containers and Kubernetes is a container orchestrator. So it allows you to deploy your containers into production and manages your container deployments and the resources. So an example of a use for Kubernetes is if you have your application deployed to 3 containers and one of the containers was to go online due to, for example, hardware failure, Kubernetes will handle replacing that container for you. So you'll be back up and running without having to manually interact with Kubernetes in any way or your containers in any way. And so what is Helm? Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes. So it allows you to deploy software stacks that are common configurations or to multiple environments. So you can deploy it to production and to development, and all you have to do is specify different parameters at deploy time. One other thing that Kubernetes offers is package repositories. So you can use repositories from a third party to install packages that they created or software that they created. So one of the benefits of using Kubernetes, as I mentioned, is multi-environments. You can write one chart, as a Kubernetes package is referred to as a chart. So you can write one chart and deploy that to dev and to production. All you do is provide different parameters for each. Okay, and one thing I want to mention is that this presentation will be focused more on using Helm rather than developing for Helm. So this will be from a user perspective. Okay, so some prerequisite tools you'll need before you can use Helm. You'll need a Kubernetes cluster, preferably a local cluster, so you can get started. Minikube is my cluster of choice. That's why there's a star next to it there. You also need some tools, kubectl, just to interact with Kubernetes, see what has been deployed, and Helm itself, the Helm CLI to deploy your charts. So getting right into it, this is from my demo. This is the configuration I went with. I went with Minikube. I have my Minikube running. This is my kubectl version and my Helm version. So if you try this at a later date and you have issues, you can refer back to this, give you some insight on maybe the issues with the version. Okay, and as far as getting right into using Helm, it's very straightforward. You can install a package typically with 2 commands. You perhaps have to add a repository. You would have to add a repository, and here's the command that I will run for my example to add the Bitnami repository, and then you will run the actual install command. And here's the command I use for my installation. So very straightforward. You don't have to create your own containers. You don't have to create your own Kubernetes manifests. So it really saves you a lot of time, really cuts down on a lot of the effort you need just to get started with an application. So here's an example of overriding a parameter. So here, I will overwrite a service from a load balancer to node port, just because this is a local deployment for testing reasons. And then uninstalling a chart is also very straightforward. One command. Here's the command I will run, and everything will be done for you by Helm. Okay, and have this demo. I'm going to actually make it full screen, so I need to. Okay, so we run the Helm install command. We're going to install a WordPress. We're going to be installing a WordPress fully deployed from one command, pretty much. I'm only overriding one thing. Instead of using a load balancer for Kubernetes, I'm using a node port, since this is a local installation. Here's some of the output we get from running Helm install. This can be customized by the developer, and we get a prompt saying to please be patient because there are some resources being deployed in the background. we are going to watch the resources as they're deployed. So that's the command that we're running here. So at the top, we see there are 2 pods. One is a database, one is a web server. They're running, but they're not ready yet. So we'll give them some time to get prepared. So this will refresh every 2 seconds. So while we wait for that, here on the left side, I have a web browser where we will visit the WordPress installation once it's fully deployed. So it looks like the database is now ready. We see that down here too. Now we're waiting on the web server to switch to the ready state. And this is all real time. I did not speed up the video. So as what you see here is what you would expect from your own installation as well. All right, so we see that the web server is now online. We will need this service to interact with the web server in the browser. So I'm going to create a port forward to allow the server to basically port forward into the Docker container. So that's the reason I was copying the service there. So I'm just going to paste that service name. And then the port that I'm going to be using as a source is 8080. I'm going to be port forwarding to port 80 inside of the container. We see that it's running. We're going to refresh here, and we see that request came in. We have the basic WordPress installation there on the left. We stop the port forwarding, and that goes offline. Okay, so it was that simple to install WordPress. One command, it stood up a database, it stood up a web server, did a lot of the service configuration for Kubernetes, all for us. So really, compared to having to write your own containers, or sorry, having to create your own containers, having to write your own manifests for Kubernetes, this is super simple, super straightforward. So it really acts as an abstraction layer. It could be possible that you know very little about Kubernetes, and you can get started with a pretty complex app with Helm. And now we're going to uninstall our WordPress. So Helm uninstall, and the name we gave our deployment there. And we're going to check the status. So it was that simple. Everything has been destroyed. All of the services, all of the pods were removed. So hopefully there you can see the benefit of using Kubernetes of using Helm over writing your own Kubernetes from scratch. So if you're ready to adopt, if you're using Kubernetes now, you see the benefits of Helm and you're ready to adopt Helm. Bitobi DevOps is more than happy to help you get started with your adoption, or if you're currently experiencing issues with Helm, anything like that, Bitobi DevOps is more than happy to help you with those.